There is a particular kind of silence that settles into your chest when you realize that the person you love is standing somewhere between you and someone else. It is not a loud kind of pain at first, not the kind that makes you scream or fall apart immediately. It is quieter than that, almost gentle in how it enters, and that is what makes it so difficult to name. You go about your day, and you smile, and you answer your phone, and you fold your laundry, and somewhere underneath all of it, there is this ache that you cannot quite shake. And maybe you have not told anyone about it, because you are not even sure how to explain it. How do you tell someone that you love a man who loves you too, but there is another woman in the picture, and you don't know where you stand anymore? How do you explain that it is not hatred you feel toward him, not even anger most of the time, but something closer to exhaustion and confusion, and a sadness that does not have a clear ending? If that is where you are right now, I want you to know that you are not foolish for feeling this way. You are not weak for loving someone, even when the situation is messy. Love does not always arrive in neat packages with clear instructions. Sometimes it shows up tangled and complicated, and you have to figure out what to do with it while your heart is still involved. But I also want you to hear something that might be hard to receive right now. You are allowed to love someone and still recognize that the situation is not honoring you. Those two things are not enemies of each other. You can hold both in your hands at the same time. You can love him and still ask yourself whether this is the kind of love that is building you up or slowly taking pieces of you away. There is a verse in Proverbs that speaks about guarding your heart, because everything you do flows from it. And for a long time, I think people misunderstood that scripture as being about closing yourself off, about building walls and refusing to feel anything. But that is not what it means. Guarding your heart means paying attention to what you are allowing to take root there. It means checking in with yourself and asking whether the things you are holding on to are bringing you closer to peace or pulling you further from it. And sometimes the hardest truth is that someone can love you and still not be ready to choose you fully. That is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of where they are in their own journey. People give what they have, and if someone is divided in their affections, it is often because they have not yet done the internal work to understand what they truly want. And you cannot do that work for them. You can encourage them. You can pray for them. You can hope that they grow. But you cannot carry the weight of their confusion on your shoulders and still walk upright yourself. I have spoken to many people over the years who found themselves in situations like this. And one of the most common things I hear is this feeling of being caught in the middle of someone else's decision. Like you are just waiting for them to make up their mind, and in the meantime, your whole life is on pause. But I want to challenge that for a moment, because your life is not meant to be a waiting room. You are not a placeholder while someone figures out what they want. You are a whole person with your own purpose, your own calling, your own value that exists completely outside of whether or not this man chooses you. And I know that might sound simple when I say it, but I also know how hard it is to feel that truth when your heart is wrapped up in someone. It is easy to lose yourself in another person, especially when you love deeply and genuinely. But God did not create you to disappear into someone else's story. He created you to have your own. And sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is step back and remember who you were before this situation consumed so much of your emotional energy. In the book of Isaiah, there is a beautiful passage where God speaks to his people and says, "Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine." And what strikes me about that verse is not just the reassurance, but the specificity of it. He does not call his people by a group name or a general term. He says, "I have called you by name." There is an intimacy in that, a personal knowing that goes beyond surface-level connection. And if the creator of everything that exists knows you by name, then your identity does not hinge on whether one man sees you clearly or not. Your worth is not up for negotiation based on someone else's indecision. I say this gently because I am not here to criticize him or tell you to hate him or to convince you that he is a villain. That is not what this is about. Sometimes people are not villains. Sometimes they are just human beings who are struggling with their own mess and making choices that hurt others in the process. That does not excuse the pain he may be causing you, but it also means you do not have to carry bitterness on top of everything else. Bitterness is a heavy thing to carry, and it often does more damage to the person holding it than to the one it is directed toward. What I am encouraging you to do instead is to grieve. Not to grieve him necessarily, but to grieve the version of this relationship you hoped it would be. Because sometimes we hold on not to what something is, but to what we imagined it could become. And there is real loss in realizing that the dream and the reality are not the same thing. Let yourself feel that. Let yourself sit in the disappointment without rushing to fix it or explain it away. You are allowed to be sad about this. You are allowed to wish things were different. You are allowed to feel the weight of loving someone who is not fully available to you, and that does not make you pathetic or desperate or foolish. It makes you human. But after you grieve, I want you to also find the courage to ask yourself what you truly need. Not what you are willing to settle for, not what you are afraid of losing, but what you actually need from a relationship in order to feel safe, honored, respected, and cherished. Because those things matter. They are not excessive. They are not asking for too much. If you subscribe to the Angelic Lights channel, you may have heard me say this before, but I will say it again because it bears repeating. You deserve a love that does not leave you questioning your place in it. You deserve someone whose presence in your life brings you peace rather than constant anxiety. And if this situation is filling you with more doubt than it is giving you rest, then maybe it is time to consider what God might be trying to show you through that discomfort. I do not believe that God sends people into our lives just to hurt us. But I do believe that sometimes He allows difficult situations so that we can learn something about ourselves, about what we need, and about what we are no longer willing to accept. Pain can be a teacher if we let it. Not a punishment, not a sign that we have failed, but a teacher that helps us redirect our path towards something healthier. In Ecclesiastes, the writer talks about there being a season for everything under the sun, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. And maybe this is your season to refrain. Not forever, not as a life sentence, but for now. Maybe this is the season where you step back and focus on your own healing before trying to hold space for someone else's mess. That is not selfish. That is wisdom. And I know that letting go, even just a little, can feel terrifying when you love someone. It can feel like you are giving up on them, or abandoning what could have been, or admitting defeat. But letting go is not always about walking away permanently. Sometimes it is just about loosening your grip so that you can breathe again. It is about trusting that if something is meant for you, you will not have to force it into existence. Real love does not require you to shrink yourself to make room for it. Real love does not ask you to compete for attention like a prize to be won. Real love sees you and chooses you, not out of convenience or obligation, but because being with you is what they genuinely want. And if this man loves you, as the situation suggests, then that love needs time and space to prove itself through action, not just words. Words are beautiful, but they are also easy to give. Anyone can say they care. Anyone can tell you that you matter. But what someone does when faced with a choice, that is where the truth lives. So pay attention, not to what he says when he is with you, but to what he does when he is away. Not to the promises he makes in tender moments, but to the patterns he shows over time. Patterns reveal more than speeches ever could. And here is something else I want you to consider. Sometimes, we become so focused on being chosen by someone that we forget we have the power to choose as well. This is not a one-sided audition where you are waiting to see if you pass the test. You are a participant in this too. You have a voice. You have preferences. And if this situation crosses a line that you know you cannot live with, then you are allowed to say no, even if you love him. Loving someone does not mean accepting everything they bring into your life. Love has boundaries. Healthy love knows when to draw lines to protect itself. And I think sometimes we forget that because we are taught that love should be unconditional and all-forgiving and infinitely patient. But even God, who is love, does not ask us to tolerate what destroys us. He calls us to wisdom. He calls us to discernment. He invites us to trust him with the outcome instead of forcing something that is not working. So as you sit with this situation tonight or tomorrow or whenever you are hearing this, I want you to pray. Not a prayer begging for a specific outcome, but a prayer of honesty. Tell God exactly what you are feeling. Tell him about the confusion and the hurt and the hope that you still carry. Ask him to show you clearly what he would have you do. And then, wait. Waiting is hard. I know that. Waiting feels like nothing is happening, like you are stuck in a pause that never ends. But waiting is not passive. Waiting is a form of trust. It is saying, I do not have all the answers right now, but I believe that clarity will come when I am ready to receive it. In Psalm 27, David writes about waiting for the Lord and being strong, letting your heart take courage and waiting again. It is almost like he understood that waiting is not a one-time act, but a repeated choice you have to make each day. And that is what I am inviting you into right now. Not a waiting that abandons your dignity, not a waiting that makes you invisible while someone else makes all the decisions, but a waiting that holds on to your worth while remaining open to whatever God chooses to do. If this man is truly meant for you, then the path forward will become clear. And if he is not, then something better is being prepared for you, even if you cannot see it yet. I do not say that to offer you false comfort or empty platitudes. I say it because I have seen it happen in real lives, in real situations, over and over again. People who thought they would never recover from heartbreak found joy again. People who thought they had missed their chance found love that exceeded their expectations. God is not limited by your current circumstances. He is not bound by what looks impossible from where you are standing. He sees the whole picture when you can only see one corner. So tonight, I am not going to tell you what to do. That is not my place. And honestly, even if I tried, you are the one who has to live with the decision. What I will say is this: you are loved, not just by a man who may or may not be ready to show up fully for you, but by a God who has never left your side. Not just in your moments of strength and composure, but in your moments of doubt and tears and questioning everything. And you are enough. Not because you perform well or look a certain way or say the right things, but because you exist and you carry a soul that was crafted with intention. If this message resonated with you, I would appreciate it if you took a moment to like this video or leave a comment sharing what God has placed on your heart. Not because I am asking for anything in return, but because your words might encourage someone else who is listening and needs to know they are not alone. And if you have not already, consider subscribing to Angelic Light's channel so that we can continue walking through these moments together. I do not take lightly the trust you place in me when you spend your time here. I know there are a million other places you could be, and I am grateful you chose to listen. Whatever you decide about this man, whatever happens in the days and weeks to come, remember that you are not defined by this moment. You are not trapped in this chapter forever. Life has a way of moving forward even when we think we are standing still. And when you look back on this season someday, I pray you see it not as a time of defeat, but as a turning point, where you learn to value yourself, even when someone else was struggling to do the same. Go in peace. Rest in the truth that your heart is being held by hands far stronger than any circumstance you are facing. And trust that the same God who brought you through everything before will bring you through this too. He is faithful, even when people are not. He is steady, even when your emotions feel like waves. And He is with you right now, in this very moment, closer than your next breath. You are going to be okay. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but you are going to be okay. And that is not a guess or a wish or a hope. That is a promise rooted in the character of the one who has never failed anyone who put their trust in Him. Hold on to that tonight. Hold on to it when the silence gets loud and the doubts try to creep in. Hold on to it when you miss Him, and when you are angry at Him, and when you do not know what to feel. You are not walking through this alone. You never were.